Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. Today, in the next episode of Scaling AI, we are going to discuss call center transformation. And with us, we have our guest, Erwin Huizenga, who is the AI practice lead for APAC Google. And we have Hasit Trivedi, CTO Digital Technologies and Global Head for AI Tech Mahindra. Going forward, I'm going to hand it over to Sailesh to continue the episode. Thank you.
Hi, good to meet you, Erwin. Good to meet you, Hasit. I think from an AI adoption standpoint, we do see a lot happening in the industry. And from that point, workloads in the call centers is exploding. What we want to know is how is industry coping with it, and with the digital transformation being the focal point, what are your views about it?
Yeah, so thank you, Shailesh, and thanks for inviting me today. So I think that's a great question to start off with. So we see a lot of call centers are important for a lot of our customers and to interact with their customers, and we see, especially also since COVID times, that there's an increase on demand on people reaching out to contact centers. And what we've seen is that there's a digital transformation happening, as you pointed out, Shailesh, is that where a lot of companies try to implement digital strategies for their call centers. And in the past, these were very rigid, straightforward, like digitalizing maybe an interaction with a customer through chat or through some of those digital channels that are there. And now what we see more and more is that there's the adoption of AI across the contact center. So that means there's different channels that people can reach out to a contact center. So it could be chat, it could be over phone, it could be via email, and the responses happening are handled by the AI applied in those contact centers. So we see more and more adoption, but it's not an easy journey. It's one of trial and error, but we see that it's growing. And you also referred to how you asked how is it managed. So that very much differs as well. What we see across the board, there's some fast movers like some of the digital natives, and there's also companies that take a bit more a slower approach and a step-by-step approach, also to not break the customer interaction they have with their customers as well. So those are some of the things that we see across the board, but I'm also keen on hearing what Hasit and the team are seeing.
Hasit, go ahead. What's your view, Hasit? Do you want to add on any specific point?
So if you see 2 decades back, there's a phrase which was coined, world is flat, right? And that was introduced because of the globalization phenomena, that people and goods were able to move from one place to other, correct? And it flourished the overall GDP of the world economy. And that was a moment where all the economies, developing economies and cross-border transaction increased significantly. So that was a globalization phenomena. Now this time we are seeing a digitization phenomena, where the boundaries are getting blurred of shifting the work, correct? People can work from anywhere. I would say that digital is making the world flatter. It was flat. It was made flat 2 decades back. Now it's making flatter. And thus, if you are working remotely or doing work remotely, I think and more digital companies have come. In last 2 decades. So I think the importance of call center becomes very critical for any business to be successful. And pandemic we have seen as a consumer. Apart from initial hiccups, I think everything has gone well, correct? We have been served well by the most of the producers, goods provider and service provider. Not too much of service issue, correct? Be it a timely delivery of the goods or services. And the volumes of call center was increased. But as a consumer, at least I have not felt the pinch too much. The kind of challenges which were there, but it was adopted very well. So yes, industry has adopted digital and technologies very fast, unprecedented speed, I would say. Never ever in last 2 decades the speed of adoption has been so fast like we have seen in last 2 years. So yes, despite this world getting flatter phenomena, the call center and enterprises have adopted pretty well. And that is a proof point of that industries are adopted pretty well.
Very well said. I completely agree in terms of how it was seen 2 years ago when the pandemic started versus what we see now looking back from a digital transformation standpoint. It's been a great success, I would say. Now, just shifting the aspect on the tech, more on the tech stack, invention, innovation, what you could see. What are some of the emerging technologies that you see, Erwin, coming up in the call center space that's benefiting customers in their, journey of digital adoption?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, of course, what we see, and Hasit pointed this out as well, is that people are starting to move to more work from home or work from anywhere or work from other places, right? So I think one of the things we're seeing is that in the past, call centers were very much centralized, right, in one building or one place. Is that now on the call center space, we see that is also changing, right? That call centers are spread out. I think a great example is some of the call centers owned by the airline industry. So people do the work from home. So what we see there is that we see that digitalization happening as well, but also we see those call center technologies moving to the cloud, right? So to make sure that it's first of all accessible from anywhere, but also it helps with scaling up and down. I think the one thing that also COVID has shown us is that there always could happen a sort of a black swan event that we're not used to, so that we have to scale up our efforts, and then also when things go back to a sort of normal, we have to scale down again. So I think the adoption of cloud technology is definitely something we see, and we've seen accelerated as well over the past 2 years, as you pointed out, Shailesh, as well. I think, and of course, the one that we see a lot is applying machine learning / AI in these call centers. So there's so much pressure on the call centers, and how can we help the people working in the call center be more efficient, but also help their customers better as well. And that's where AI is being applied. And some of the use cases that we see is the one we all know are the chatbots, so the online interaction. I think we've gone from where in the past where they were very clunky to now having these AI chat agents that are almost are getting very difficult to distinguish from actual human interaction. So those are improving as well, but we should also see them being applied to phone, so speech to text interaction. So we see it across the board, and we mainly see a focus on where this technology is trying to help those agents, like I said, be more efficient in their work, and also allowing them to focus on things there where they can even have more impact, right? On the really difficult use cases that can't be solved by AI or machine learning yet. So I think just to sum those two up, I think what we've seen is a faster adoption of cloud technology because of people needed to work from different locations, so they needed access to that type of technology, scaling up and down, of course, where needed. But also the second thing that we've seen is a faster adoption of AI, also mainly because of the fast pace of digital transformation, but also because AI has just become better to be applied in the context center. I think especially what we've seen around AI being able to handle unstructured data like text, like voice, the pace of the research and also the applied research, right? So where we actually apply the research within those contact centers and actual use cases, it has taken off very fast in the past years. And I think customers feel more like comfortable with applying those technologies in their day-to-day business because they know it can offer a lot of value for them. So that's what I've seen across the board.
Awesome. Hasit, do you want to add specifically around how do you see even, banks or some of these industries who have a large legacy infrastructure coping up to the fact that newer tech innovation is coming in? What are your views on that, if you could add?
Yeah, I think irrespective of the industry, I think one key macro trend or abstraction of the trend, I would say, is in next 1 decade, there will be a transition from voice to voice in call center technology. Okay, voice from a analog voice to the so human talking with the call center agent to the human talking with the digital assistant and Alexas of the world. So that's why I'm telling voice to voice. Nothing is changing. Human is still interacting in a form of voice, but the one is your analog voice, and the human as the other side. Other is the same analog voice, but digital assistant or Alexas of the world on the other side. Now this, while it sounds simple, but it will be a very, very complex journey, because understanding human way of dialoguing with the machine by the machine is very, very difficult. And I would say, despite all the maturity of the AI technology, the voice is still, I would say, is not really solved across the thing, because the kind of language, accents, and the kind of Erwin, you're talking about that mixing the languages across the things, correct? So that's very, very when humans start talking in an informal manner with the machine, which is ideally they would like to have. It is not, again, if you go to the IVR kind of setup, then the adoption will be a challenge. The power of the AI is to let human talk in a natural way, because that is the core to the human interaction. Right? Once that happens, it becomes a very complicated journey, and it requires a significant investment from the enterprises to get ready for this thing. And I believe that this is where in 1 decade, the customer experience of provided by various companies will change. And the gap between the disruptor and the legacy organization who continue to say legacy will increase only. And the deterioration of customer services by those companies will be exponential, because the power of digital assistants and AI-led assistant is that it's available 24/7. You can't beat by, it's too costly for all industry to provide this 24/7 call center. Answers are precise. So the machine knows precise question and answer, assuming it's been designed well and trained well over a period of time. And it de-skills everything, correct? It's no human risk of somebody going on leave, somebody's getting attrition or any of those things. So I think that voice to voice transition is the key phenomena. Legacy organization or legacy system, I would say legacy system is not a challenge, because the AI technology, as long as data is available, your system can be mainframe, it can be client server. That is the power of AI technology, correct? So far, always the way was to modernization of legacy system, but potentially somewhere the AI just takes away that backlog of the legacy, correct? As long as I have the modern data and data is correctly provided, and voice is the interface, it doesn't matter whether the screen color doesn't matter, whether it's a black, green, or a purple and red, or it's a client or a gray machine, correct? So that is the power of AI, and that allows legacy technology industry to leapfrog with the same speed what other industry does it. So it's an opportunity for the organization which is in still legacy stage to provide greater services using the newer technology.
So I think it's a great point, Hasit, that while there are complex infrastructural landscape that's available for the companies, with AI adoption, things are becoming much simpler, provided it's being implemented in the way it is supposed to be implemented. That brings me to the point where there's a lot of talks about agentless call centers. Is that real? Do we see that happening in the industry today? What's your view, Erwin and Hasit, on that dream of agentless, call center made real for our customers?
I think that's a great question, Shailesh. And before I go into that question, it's actually a question we get. At least I get a lot. I just wanted to plus one on what Hasit said. Is that with the AI, I think what we've seen across the board, like you said, Hasit, is the human-like interaction. I think that's we've hit that point where we see that. I think that's very important, and you pointed that out as well for the customer experience, because I think that should always be first, right? For us, it's maybe more natural if we interact with a computer and if it's a bit clunky. But I always think about my mom or people who are less tech savvy. They are used to human interaction. I think we are getting at that level where the AI can be at that level as well. But I think spot on again. It's the user or the customer experience there that should be central, and that should always be the focus, and not. Sometimes we forget we love these new technologies and we want to deploy new technologies like AI, but that should not be the goal in itself, right? The goal should be we offer this awesome customer experience. So great point. I just wanted to plus one on that. So agentless contact center, as you asked. So is that something we're going to see? So in my opinion, I don't have a magic ball that I can look into the future, not in the near term future, because I think we still need real human to human interaction in complex cases, right? If you have a bank and someone has been defrauded money, and you need to do research, you need to ask very specific questions related to this case. I think that's an example where you still need human to human interaction, and because AI is still very focused on one task or a few tasks, right? And a human is great if they need to switch between very different tasks. So I think where we see AI be applied is to the more easy cases. So my food delivery has gone wrong. I want just a refund I want to have a refund of my money. So those straightforward cases, or I want to make sure I can use my bank account when I go and travel, right? I want to switch on foreign use of my bank card. So basic things like that, I think that can be easily automated and can be done by the AI. But I believe that there's that frees up time for the agents to focus on those more difficult use cases. And the one I just pointed out was on fraud. And that's what I see across the board, is that there's more and more pressure. So what we're on these call centers, so what we're trying to do, and these agents, what we're trying to do is we try to automate the easy cases away by applying AI, so that we free up the time for our agents to focus on those more difficult tasks. And I think that will also help providing a better customer experience, right? Because that's where you want to really go that next mile to help your customer if they've been defrauded of money, or if something has happened where you need to take a bit more time to step back and to look into it as well. So that's what I see across the board, and that's where I see the focus as well, that people still realize that we need human agents as well for those types of use cases. But yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen in 10, 20 years as well, but maybe Hasit has a thought on that.
No, Erwin, I think you rightly pointed out. I think what you said, CX has to be focused, correct? And I completely subscribe to that view, that even if you're aspiring for agentless, I would say that let's keep that as an aspiration. It's good to aspire to stretch yourself to do better for customer, but do that thing with the intent of serving customer better, not to reduce the cost, because the trajectory of your path to reach to that destination agentless will be very different if you take a cost takeout as an initiative or improving customer experience. And I think if you go to the former route, it will not be that effective, because you will not design your systems and solution process correctly, because you will end up designing it for something else. So if the end goal is different, then design will certainly will be incorrect. Now, coming back to agentless, I think it's important to have that aspiration, and the way to reach that aspiration is that you start working towards for these intents, I don't want customer to calling my agents, correct? Go step by step approach to intent by intent, because if you really know that the channel of customer interaction has the two element, One is the cost, other is experience, correct? And sometimes you try to reduce the cost, the experience is there. So the intent has to be chosen appropriately to get it right trade-off the cost and experience. Clearly, chatbot is cheapest, but with the current design enterprise does it, experience is also poor. So you have to see how to prioritize your intent movement from one channel to other, which is a high cost to low cost, which of course has a negative repercussion of experience, but it's a trade-off call, correct? And you start moving your call center traffic from one channel to other channel on a gradual manner over a period of time. And what will happen, you will have, today you have 10 intents because of which customer calls you, you will have probably 5 years down the line, you will have 8 intents because of which the customer, and 2 are been streamlined to other channels, low cost channel, and experience also improves over a period of time. However, 8 will become again 10 with the newer intents. You are able to serve better, correct? So more today your call center for complicated stuff, you will say, okay, our engineers will come, or you come to the your retail shop or branch, correct? Now with workload moving, easy workload moving to other channels, you have opportunity to serve more kind of intent through call center. More run-of-the-mill conversation can be handled by machines, and more complicated conversation handled by the call center agents, correct? So human will uplift capability and thus able to serve it better, and the machine will start. So it will not be agentless, but agentless for a certain set of intent is certainly a path which will have, and agents will take up the higher and more complex job, which is they don't take it. So I think if with that architecture, if you keep in mind, I think there will be a significant improvement in customer experience. Cost alignment will happen, but that is not the core. Ensuring customers served 24/7, precise manner, no handoffs, no information loss between when moving from one channel to other channel. These are the key design principles if we keep in mind. I think it will be world is much better for consumer.
Now, I would completely agree, and very well put. I remember one of the customer code said that, even if I don't want to achieve the agent-less aspect, I want to make my agent superhuman. I want to make so much information available to make the customer experience seamless, making them superhuman. And that was quite impactful, I would say. So with that, let me bring back the conversation on the tech aspect. So for our customers, if you look at it, they have invested in Avaya's, Cisco's of the world in infrastructure standpoint. They have their own problems on attrition and many other aspects happening in the current call center environment. One more tech complexity being added now with cloud transformation, and bringing cloud into the mix of existing call centers is the trend that we see. There's a lot of conversation, a lot of adoption happening on the cloud contact center aspect. I wanted you, Erwin, and then Hasit, you to comment on what are your specific views. Are there benefits? Is it really bringing in the next generation of cloud contact center transformation, leveraging cloud in the mix of multiple tech stack that's already available for our customers?
Yeah, so that's a big, tough question. So let me give it a try. So what? Yes, we see this cloud transformation happening very much. Just it's very tied to the digital transformation you talked about earlier as well. But there's existing legacy and there's existing technology. And Hasit pointed this out as well. I think for a lot of the customers that we see, it's in the end they strive to have a lot of their technology on cloud. For a lot of customers, what I see as well is that doesn't mean always 100%, or that sometimes it's not even 50%. So I think a lot of our customers try to figure out where can cloud accelerate again some of our innovation that we're having, or improve, or make our call centers agents superhuman, as you pointed out as well. And from a technology perspective, I think it's if I talk from a GCP perspective, our strategy is always we want to meet customers where they are. So if that means they have an existing telephony platform that they're happy with and keep using, that's where we integrate with. So we partner with those telephony partners. We partner with integration partners. So I think we want to meet customers where they are, but we want to help them indeed with accelerating that innovation, accelerating that digitalization. And it very much differs. So I can give some examples. Like if you look at digital natives, they are born in the cloud. So for them, a lot of these use cases are 100% cloud native. But then if you look at banks that are tied to very strict regulation, as we see in India as well, data needs to stay in country. That makes things more complex. And you have an existing on-premise legacy environment, and some components you're happy with, you want to keep, and some components you want to replace. So I think this ties also into what Hasit pointed out with the intent by intent approach. We see that as well with cloud migrations, with a technology or workload per workload approach. And I think that could, for example, mean that first moving maybe the chat channel to the cloud, or maybe moving your telephony environment to the cloud first, or maybe start with having your data in the cloud, right? Because I think offering that consistent customer experience doesn't only mean by applying this cutting edge machine learning AI, but also having a consistent view of your customer and making sure that the data is available across these different channels that you're interacting with, right? If a customer has just called you with the same question, you want to make sure the agent is aware of that. So AI is great, but still we need to make sure that the data foundation is in place as well. And what we often see is that that's where customers, especially also in enterprise space, start slowly with moving those data workloads to the cloud. So storing it on the cloud, pre-processing, and then it's often a workload by workload approach. And just like I pointed out, I think there's not one approach for this. It very much depends on where are you in that journey, what are you happy with your existing platform, what is your strategy? Do you want to be multi-cloud? Do you want to be majority of your workloads on one cloud? So, but from a Google perspective, we very much believe in meeting a customer where they are, and just integrating also with the technologies that are sometimes on-premise, but also sometimes existing telephony platforms. So we very much believe in that strategy, because there's not just one solution for all of these problems.
Yeah, I think Arvin, I think you rightly put out. I think it's very contextualized. It is no single answer to this complex problem. Especially call center is a complex world, correct? Each company is operating in different manner. Each system data for each company are different. So any pros and cons of adopting a SaaS kind of thing, correct, has to be evaluated here as well. Because if you are buying a cloud call center capability in a SaaS form, then certainly your ability to contextualize reduces. Your ability to customize reduces. Correct. So either you use some kind of framework to ensure that it allows you to do that thing, or if your business is aligned with the capabilities which cloud service provider provides, then you can go for it. But I think in reality, it will be, I would say that it's a ability to customize, contextualize, the affinity of the surround system, because call center systems requires a lot of data from other backend systems. So what is the strategy of those systems to be on cloud? Are they on cloud or they are not in cloud? No point in doing handshake bit across the cloud and on-premise for everything, correct? So it has to be seen as a collective CRM, call center, billing, and all those systems together and take a call. And finally, ability to contextualize, because the call center technology will also be a differentiator, correct? If everybody uses the same technology, then your ability to differentiate your services also reduces, correct? So are you able to move ahead of the whatever SaaS provider provides, correct? It's like a common denomination. Any SaaS provider will provide the common denomination capabilities. Now, with that common denomination, you have to see if you are below the common denomination, you may want to adopt. But if you are ahead of the common denomination, you may want not to adopt, correct? Or if you have aspiration to move ahead of that common denomination, then certainly you would have a different hybrid strategy or something of that sort. And it is not applicable to call center as a cloud service, but any SaaS piece, I would say. So I think that is a key thing. And more importantly, call center, I think the local regulation, data storage, data protection aspect has also comes into picture. because your enterprise data is sitting in some countries at different places where this thing, your call center might be centralized in one location and hence the data center of that call center in one location. It will be very difficult to ensure that it's not impossible, but it's complex to manage this ecosystem in a homogeneous manner. For small setup, it might be possible, but for large setup, it has to be strategically aligned with that call center provider or hyperscaler provider to ensure that your strategy and the hyperscaler strategy or cloud service provider strategy aligns.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So yes, more complexities involved, but there is definitely light at the end of the tunnel, I would say. With those adoption, we would see more and more benefits coming our way. Now, I want to segue into more around initial adoption of AI in the contact center. Started off with too many, I would say, conversational assistant chatbots being implemented, right, by customers. We do see a lot of times, even in conversations, that the intents are not completely understood, and thereby calls are getting transferred to the regular channel. There's always a challenge in terms of whether what's the ROI on that investment. So conversational AI as a channel, while it has matured from a technology standpoint, what do you see? Maybe Hasit, this time I'll pose it to you with your thoughts on what do you see some of this now, being matured. Is the failure rate gone down, as there are a lot of cases of failure already being seen in the industry? Do you see that trend being changing? And what are some of your suggestions if we were to look at leveraging this channel more effectively in the call center environment?
So I think the conversation AI, I think I love this technology personally. I think among all the AI technology, I find it most promising and disruptive technology, which I believe which is coming in our way. Correct? Nothing can beat human-like interaction with machine. Correct? And the NLP and conversation. So here is the issue here. The technology is ready in a reasonable manner to adopt to enterprises. But the problem is that the design of the technology is done by the engineers. And thus, the experience is poor. So technology is good, design is not good, and thus experience is poor. So it has been seen as a technology project in most of the enterprises, and thus the adoption of the chatbot is hardly 2% globally. Correct? Every website will have a chatbot, but hardly anybody interacts with that chatbot. And you will see that you try asking certain things, it will just fail to understand the intent itself, correct? Or it will next level 2 questions after that, it just have this thing. Why? Because the kind of human dialogues mixed with the other human that has not been designed. The business, language expert, humanics experts are not involved. It is some engineer thinks that he knows what end user asks, he will think by his or her imagination, these are the 10 kind of utterances for this intents are there, and it will design, it just fails. Okay? So I think while the design will change, but there is no feedback mechanism also. Correct? People implement chatbot without the real-time analytics around it. Correct? What is going on in the conversation? Are you able to see the conversation? It's like a call center, calls are going, but if you are not able to understand as an enterprise with the voice analytics that what kind of conversation is going on, that there's no way you can figure it out what is the experience and customers are getting in call center. Similar goes to this thing. Your conversations are happening, people are exchanging, but you do not have, you are clueless because there is no analytics built in to understand the quality of utterances, quality of intent identification, how many conversation completed, how many conversation completed successfully, how many times handoffs are happening. So this analytics piece, which is intent agnostic, you have to design it for the whole enterprise. It is not bound to a bot or a intent or a kind of thing, correct? So that strategy of building this real-time analytics as a feedback mechanism to design element is missing in most of the enterprises. And that realization is happening now because the adoption is low, people realize it now. And that will be critical to be successful. And I said the voice to voice transition, correct? If voice become a universal interface for human to interact with machine, then first step is to, of course, text-based chatbot has to happen correctly. And then of course the transcription and other technology will come to make it voice enabled. But we have to graduate to that level. But the feedback mechanism involving the business users, people with the language expertise, people with the cultural expertise, people with the humanics expertise has to be involved to design it right. I think it can't be seen as an IT project, which is currently it comes. It is like you're opening up a new channel for an interaction. Like you have a e-commerce channel to do commerce, you have the brick and mortar channel, conversation AI is another channel. And it is not only for servicing, it is for promotion, commerce, and the service, all things, correct? It has to be envisaged that. So it is not seen as a channel today. It is a capability within a channel. Unless it is seen as a channel, which some of the banks I know that they have started investing heavily as this seeing as a channel, which will from promote to commerce to service. They're envisaging this to happen as a new channel. And thus they're designing interface, user interface for that chatbot, which allows to do a full spectrum services to the end customers. And once that strategy is behind that, then right design will happen and right implementation happen. But if the chat strategy is towards intent and the engineers doing certain things, I think the result will be what we see most of the time today. Correct. So it's a promising technology. It's a disruptive technology. I think it's up to enterprise to design it right.
Well said. Well said. Erwin, what are your thoughts on that?
It will be very difficult to do a better answer on that question. I think Hasit was spot on. I think if you look at a lot of the technology, technology is at such a level these days that it even impresses me day by day. I think WaveNet is a great example, released by DeepMind for generating voice. It's very difficult, distinct from actual human voices. So the technology is there, and I couldn't agree more by the point Hasit made on you need a feedback mechanism. So if you implement something, you need to understand, is it working as expected, and is it doing what we want it to do, right? And I think that's something a lot of companies struggle with, and I think that has always been our approach as well. If we like providing insights on how things are performing, and then acting on that and improving your system is something that's very, very important. But that, of course, you can solve that through technology, but I think that's also a people and process mindset. I think as Hasit pointed out, it's not only an IT-led transformation that you're going through, where you replace one technology by another and you're done, right? I think you have to collaborate with those business folks. You have to collaborate. You have to understand what your customers are providing as feedback, how they're experiencing this interaction with the contact center. So I think it's a more of a holistic approach in that sense, and that's something that's underestimated as well. But I do believe, yes, again, that technology is at such a level these days that it can be easily implemented, and it can offer a human-like interaction. But it also comes down to how do you actually implement this, and how do you improve your system over time as well. But I think that's something that's not only specific for contact centers. If we deal with AI and machine learning, I've always been a big advocate of this, is that we very much focus, especially as technologists in this field, on what sort of offline performance of AI and ML, right? We do our training, and then we test our system, and if it's offline performing well, we put it in production. But I think it's way more important for us to monitor how things are performing in production and what is actually happening there. I think that's the case with any system we're building, but especially with these AI based systems as well. So and then also reacting to those insights you're getting, I think is very important as well. So to capture it and then react. So but yeah, again, agreed with what Hasit pointed out as well, but just wanted to plus one on these few points.
I'm sorry, couldn't agree more, Erwin. It's important to see the implementation of the technology in the right sense. But I think a key takeaway I see that Hasit pointed out on the feedback mechanism is a great aspect of continuously monitoring on how your bots, your autonomous infrastructure behaving for your benefits. And I think it's a great point on implementing these aspect which is missing in most of the implementation today in conversational AI. So great conversation. Thank you so much, Erwin, for spending this time. Thank you, Hasit, for specifically addressing some of these challenges in the call center world. Back to you, Monica.
Thank you so much. And it was great to have you all on board and share such insights. I really wish our followers have a lot of takeaways from this episode and all your insights. Thank you so much.